Hey Stephen, how is it going?
Hi Otto, how are you doing?
Welcome to the podcast. So, today we're going to
Thank you.
talk about longevity, about managing the stress, about fertility, and perhaps other topics that you're passionate about. So, please
Mhm.
tell us and our listeners, viewers, something about your background.
Okay, so I'm a scientist, biologist. So I spend my working life thinking about developing new cell and gene therapies, and that entails thinking a lot about how the body naturally repairs itself and the importance of lifestyle choices to the capacity of your body to regenerate itself, be it things like sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress management, and just having a positive disposition and purpose.
Hmm, that's interesting. I only can agree on that because that's something I'm interested in as well. So, what would you say about the longevity and the bio um, biological science behind it? What's the research? What is the proof that this lifestyle is really making people live longer and less complication?
Well, I think there's a large body of evidence out there suggesting that a bad lifestyle is one that impairs the capacity of the body to regenerate itself. So if you're sleep deprived or you're chronically under stress or you eat lots of fast food or consume large amounts of alcohol or other drugs, that's actually impairing the capacity of the body to heal itself because you're effectively adding different stressors onto your body in addition to the other stresses of life, and that reduces the cells' capacity to manage themselves and ultimately for the body to heal itself. So, healthy lifestyle, you know, very important to just allowing the body operate at its full capacity to regenerate itself.
Yeah. At the moment, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts and videos on YouTube from experts on nutrition, functional medicine, and they talk a lot about inflammation and
Mhm.
how, in combination with lack of sleep and this chronic inflammation that we have, how it negatively impact so many aspects of our lives. So
Mhm.
it makes only sense to combine the healthy lifestyle and nutrition, and that's what I'm a big promoter of. So it's always nice to talk to somebody who is working in a field more specifically, professionally, and so we were talking also about the fertility in men in 40s and 50s. So, what would you say about that? What improves the fertility? What actually makes things worse?
Well, I suppose one of the sedentary lifestyle really reduces men's fertility. So like I mean, all the things that contribute to ill health will also contribute to a decline in fertility. In addition to that, which happens through aging. And I think society as a whole, people are trying to get more and more financially secure before having children now, which means that both women and men are making kind of family planning choices later in life. And then in some cases, people's boat has sailed prior to their capacity to actually have a child, and that then means that you're either going for IVF, which is pretty arduous journey for a woman to have to go through. Involves hormonal treatment sometimes, and that can really have a lot of consequences. And it's just it's expensive, and it's quite an emotional roller coaster as one would imagine. So, I think there's other ways of assisting just your innate capacity to protect your fertility. So good nutrition, good sleep, all these things contribute. Stress management can really facilitate, I suppose not partaking in alcohol or other drugs too often is also, really quite important.
I'm glad how you call alcohol and other drugs.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
I think it's
it's a non as
pretty well documented that alcohol, excessive alcohol consumption causes a decrease in infertility, just because your body, you're adding an extra stressor onto your body that depletes its capacity to regenerate itself
hmm.
effectively.
So I think,
So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, another part of that could be overtraining. Sometimes if people overtrain,
too
so
much
you get
stress from
really,
it.
really fit. Like, I mean, a lot of, like, say, Olympic, athletes, sometimes they'll suffer a decline in fertility because they're, all their body's capacity, is put into their training. And that sometimes can lead. So you can overtrain yourself into infertility,
Yeah.
or a declined fertility, which is also worth bearing in mind. Sometimes, if you're trying for a child, it's good to try and maybe not overtrain.
Yeah, I heard a similar story on female bodybuilding when they go to these very extremely low body fat levels, that
Mm.
eventually it messes up their ability to be fertile,
Well,
as we
like,
need
you're
that for hormones.
yeah, exactly. Your fat is very important in your capacity to produce hormones, which then have key effects on all those kind of systems. So if you're very low body fat, your capacity to make hormones can be diminished.
So that just shows again how everything in its right amount, not extremely low, extremely high. So, and that's what
Yeah.
I am actually finding with nutrition, with exercise, that, that right, that golden middle where the truth is, where the balance is.
Yeah, I suppose it's you know the curse of thinking that if a little does good, a lot will do better again, which is the kind of, I suppose. Sorry, I'm just gonna plug this in here. My battery's going down. No, I suppose the human beings naturally tend to, if a little works well, then they'll assume a lot works better. And I don't know if you've seen. There's a movie out at the moment called Another Round,
No,
which
I
is
haven't. What is it about?
its theme is about alcohol consumption. And they start off, and they're these four middle-aged guys, and they're drinking a little bit to kind of make life more exciting, and to improve their joie de vivre, their joy of life. And it works very good at the beginning, and then they start upping the dosage, and it all goes to hell. So it's kind of, it's a commentary on what we all do. If we lean on a crutch too much, yeah, then it'll become a liability to us as well. So, if we overtrain or overeat, or oversleep, or all these things can be done to excess.
Yeah. In fairness, I find alcohol not doing me any good, even if I have one beer, for example.
Mm.
Sometimes it makes me absolutely sleepy. All I want to do is lie down,
Mm.
lethargic. I just want to sleep, seriously. And so I just realized my body is reacting to that alcohol. Like it's actually sedative for me. Like it makes me
Yeah, yeah, it's,
relax
it's
too
kind of an
much.
interesting one, because, like, I was going back to on holiday back to Ireland recently, and I kind of tapered myself in a little bit. So I had a few, you know, 3 or 4 nights of just having a pint or 2 pints, just because I knew I was going out with my friends when I came back. And instead of giving my body a great big acute shock, I decided to kind of just, let my body know that, some social drinking was going on. And I think the same with, kind of, like, for example, all the sun we're getting. You see some people going out, and they just, really hot sunny day, and they had their skin hasn't seen sunlight in a year or a year and a half, and then they overexpose themselves to the sun and get quite badly burned.
Yeah.
So, I think, change, it can be managed through, careful, I suppose, dissipation of the change over a period of time. So, it's much better to have a chronic change that can be managed over a longer period of time than an acute change that maybe can't be very well controlled.
In
And your body's ability to respond to new stimuli over a longer term will be much greater than its capacity to respond very, very quickly.
I
You
think
know,
in form of inflammation from nutrition especially, it's actually
yeah.
the other way around. The chronic inflammation is the big problem. Acute inflammation, which is like actually what stimulates body and allegedly gives us some benefits. So it's interesting how you say that. It's actually the analogy of complete opposite with inflammation and that stressors in a lifestyle where, you know,
Well, inflammation is there. You shouldn't be chronically inflamed. Like that your immune system, there's something imbalanced if you're chronically inflamed, because you're when you get infections, or if something's going, if you turn bleeding or something like that, then your immune system will kick into play, but it shouldn't be always on to a high degree. And if it is always on, then that might indicate that your lifestyle needs readjustment.
yeah,
So
it's
maybe you need to just chill out a bit.
yeah, like chill out a little bit. It's actually sometimes really good advice when I work with clients and I can see they getting sick quite often. For example,
Mm.
I don't even remember last time I was sick. Occasionally I get sore throat, but I haven't seen doctor for many, many years. I can't even remember in which year I was last time like sick. And that's when I
Well, you
see,
got the you got the benefit of youth and health, and
oh,
eventually
thank you, Stephen. I'm
doctors tend
39
to
next in 3 weeks.
I know, but like you're a fitness instructor, so the good thing is that you can't get around your sessions. Like like, I mean, I think it can be harder for people whose profession is not fitness based.
Yeah.
Uh,
In fairness, I can tell you when I was child and we always played football, we had organic vegetables, fruit, we were working in a garden, we were also keen hikers, the whole family. So our
mm,
training, well, our lifestyle was about training, train,
mm,
activity, and then having that garden. I was always hooked on sugar, and my parents, especially my mom, always bought some sweets for us, biscuits and all that stuff. And we were very active, but I could feel I was becoming addicted. When I didn't have it, I was craving it,
mhm,
and we were rarely getting sick. As kids in school, we would maybe me and my brother skip 1 or 2 days in a year, while some of
mhm,
the other pupils in my class would skip 2, 3 weeks up to a month. So
mhm,
I could see it as a pattern that we were sort of eating healthier and we were active, and our health was way superior to people who were not active. And I don't know
mhm,
how well they were eating, but I can only appreciate now as I'm getting older, like what my parents did for us was actually
mhm,
giving really strong groundwork to build up on. Even though I was refusing it for a very long time,
mhm,
I didn't want to eat vegetables, fruits. Then I was losing my health, and I realized that when I was 22. So
mhm,
it's a huge change from point of view how you feel physically, your energy, not feeling sleepy or brain fog, and also your confidence, your
mhm,
mental emotional states where you're more balanced, don't worry about things, how the nutrition
mhm,
can quickly bring you down into depression, anxiety, and
mhm,
health issues. And I tried that kind of, I dive bombed into that sort of low health in my early 20s. So my last 20 years were about rebuilding what I sort of knew and lost. And then, I could definitely feel, and that's why I'm actually in the field of promoting healthy lifestyle, because I know it's a mindset, it's preparation, it's a choice. But we need
mhm.
to be educated to make the right choices. That's why I like talking to experts and people in the field and studying and sharing this information, because I think it's well worth it and it saves
Mhm.
lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you read the literature and everything, there, people are always saying, "Oh, well, take this supplement or take this, piece of advice, but sometimes we need to listen to our bodies and just take the foot off the accelerator sometimes. Um, and I think that in my own case, like work can totally dominate every facet of my life. And I think one of the things I've learned over the years is when to step back from work in order to improve performance. And, like, I think, just had a week back in Ireland, and it was really life affirming to travel back for the first time since the pandemic began and meet family and friends and just relax and still do activity. Like, had 10 swims during the week, which was great to get outside and meet up with friends and go for swims and stuff like that. And it was very I feel a lot more energized than I was when I left to go on a holiday. And I think I'm not the kind of person that necessarily likes taking holidays because you always come back to more work,
Hmm.
but it's really important for your overall performance, I think.
Absolutely. And I also have a similar rule for myself, and I recommend to clients who were working for such a long time, and you were actually one of them. I could see you working out since the last year with me for a year, and you skipped, I think, one session after vaccine. You were not feeling well. We moved one session. So do you remember I was telling you, you should not train for that week, at least that 1 week, because for someone, and I actually say that for myself, I sometimes needed it as a fitness instructor and personal trainer to just not train. Sometimes it's hard for me to do because every time I was going for holidays, I was just doing a lot of activities, and eventually after holidays I came more exhausted, because plus add the lack of sleep between flights and going that sort of early flight to get back. So actually, when you go back to work, I felt drained. I was like, wow, I'm back in work and I need another holiday to recover from my holiday. So the idea is like how well we rest. Are we hyperactive, or someone who is really busy at work and then they could just chill out and do not much or go for a walk, and instead they find themselves projects to make themselves even busier and busier. So I think here we're talking a little bit about addiction.
Yeah, I think addiction, the physiology of it and the psychology of it is very interesting. And I think a lot of people have addictive personalities, and it's like that scene. I don't know if you've seen the second Train Spotting
Nope.
movie, but basically they're all addicts in the movie. They're all kind of either current or reformed heroin addicts, and Renton, who's one of the key characters played by
Oh, was
Ewan
it
McGregor.
Edinburgh? Yeah.
Yeah, and he's talking to
Based.
Spud, who's still a heroin addict, and he's saying, you're always going to be an addict. You just have to choose your addiction. So Renton has, got into, hiking and running, and that's his addiction. That's where he realizes he's an addictive personality, but he can't forego that. But what he can do is he can choose his addiction.
This
Um,
this is actually very interesting because I've noticed that as well. Certain people, even I personally have addictive personality for sure. I get easily hooked on anything from food to games to doing anything
yeah,
in excess. But as you say that really nicely, is just to choose your addiction and focus on something which actually have some benefits. That's why when somebody says like, "Oh, look at this person, he is in the gym every day,
yeah,
5 6 times a week for 3 hours," it's like, great, it's better than taking heroin or going to the pub every day.
yeah,
It's good,
yeah,
it's better addiction. I say, look, well, you have no idea what that guy is going through mentally, or that lady mentally, emotionally, and how much
yeah.
that gym session filters all of that tension and stress out of their life.
Yeah, I think I know as I get older, I think that one of the great gifts you can give to yourself is just being more aware of how you are. And just like how you're feeling. Are you feeling tired? Are you feeling up? Feeling down, or whatever? And I think as a younger person, you tend to kind of go, I'll just power through this, and that's a short-term coping mechanism. But I think, the key to long-term health is having a purpose, but also being very aware of how you are on a day-to-day basis. So I think, like, one of the things that we do a lot in our training sessions, Otto, is, you get feedback about, how you feeling, do you have any aches and pains, like when we did those one-legged squats, are your knees grand from the last session?
Yeah.
And we kind of, I think in some ways what can make people very good in the gym is the ability to dissociate from their physical selves, so that they're able to go the extra mile in the discomfort zone. But people can carry that to an extreme and then overtrain themselves into injury. So it's
Yeah.
about keeping the balance. Like, if we've got addictive personalities, we'll tend to go to an extreme.
Always, always.
um,
And you can see
and
that on people, so that's why you have to keep an eye on it. Like, well, we have a addict here, so we have to really dose them right.
Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, you see so many people pushing lifestyles to extremes, and some people, it derails their capacity to function. So it's good to mix things up, and I think that's very true for things like, social life, and meeting new people. I think it's quite important. Like, I mean, to be honest, I think the lockdown has us all in a much smaller social grouping than we would normally be, and that can have an effect on us as well.
Yeah, some
Like, I
people are
think
more sensitive to it.
yeah, and I think one of the things that I've seen, in lockdown, is people tend to, that what they watch online tends to be bias kind of upholding, or like the algorithms are showing us new videos based on the old videos we've already watched, and we can very easily fall into echo chambers,
Yeah.
where we're not receiving new information, we're receiving information that's like the old information, and that can be quite damaging to us sometimes, because we're not learning. Instead, we're having our old biases reaffirmed.
Okay.
And I think, one of the key things of health overall is really taking care about what you select to put into your body, and that includes your mind. The information you put in your mind, is it, are you, watching the doom and gloom of news every day, or you're watching the stock markets and all the perturbance there, and worrying about the future and maybe regrets from the past. And the healthy way is to just be focused on the now, and be fully registered about what your body's telling you right now. And I think living in the moment, and really taking the cues from what your body and mind are telling you. And that could be subconscious, could be stuff from dreams. So if you're having a lot of nightmares, that might be indicating that you've got a high degree of anxiety in your life, for example, and maybe it's time to
Stop watching
go
news.
another direction.
Stop watching
Yeah.
news and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like, I think I'm a big proponent of Stoic philosophy.
I
So
was
there's this
just
guy
thinking
called,
to ask you, Stephen. I was just thinking because you touched a few things there. So you
yeah.
touched one thing
So
over there, which was the pandemics, the
yeah.
people's making their own medical decisions after watching YouTube, and then
Mm.
you have this Stoic philosophy that you blended in very nicely of just like stay calm and so on. So can you elaborate on that as well, the Stoic philosophy, and then talk about something which we touched before, is about like people are so anti-vaccines based on
Yeah.
watching videos on YouTube, which is like
Yeah.
a guy said, like I really am
Yeah.
interested to say someone like you who is in the research
Yeah.
of biology.
Yeah. I think. All right. There's number two. The two topics. We'll take the Stoic philosophy first. Stoic philosophy is, personally, I found it really, really useful. It's, can be boiled down to a few different kind of like guidelines. One of the main ones is, sit down and differentiate between what you can control and what you can't control. So, for example, if you're going for a job interview, you can't control whether they give you the job or not, but you can focus on giving a good performance of yourself at the interview, and giving yourself a pat on the back when you give a good performance. And I think what a lot, people cause themselves an awful lot of undue pain by putting their happiness, connecting it to things that are beyond their control. And I think that if you tie your happiness to things that you can control, like, for example, focusing on your performance for a job interview and congratulating yourself on giving yourself a good representation of who you are as a potential employee, that's much healthier for you than, for example, uh, putting all your kind of happiness associated with the result, which is outside your control. Or, like, if you tie your happiness with money, like sometimes money goes up, money goes down, that's not within your control, during a recession, for example. Or if you tie your happiness to, owning a house, I mean, in many cases, our capacity to get on the property ladder is determined by, other outside events. Or, if you tie yourself happiness to, finding the right person and settling down, sometimes you mightn't find the right person. So there's things
Mysterious
within our
ways.
control and things that are outside our control. So it'd be like kind of worrying about, um, like what your weight is, rather than focusing on good performance in the gym. If you just give yourself a good performance in the gym consecutively, then eventually the results will come. So that's Epictetus and Stoic philosophy. It's got a lot of things that basically stop you worrying about things that don't actually help you anyway. And it advocates things like, living in the now and not, spending too much time either in the past or the future, because the past is gone and the future is still beyond your control, still beyond your reach.
Yeah.
So outside of, like, prudent planning, you should divert most of your attention to the present moment, and doing what you can for your self-care and your health and the welfare of others around you in the moment. Because how much wasted effort do we put thinking about the past and thinking about
Worrying
the
about
future?
what she said, what he said, worrying
Yeah.
about the future. Absolutely. That's why I think having a little bit of a routine with what we absorb, what we watch, and everybody
Mm.
has a computer at their hands reach. It's basically a smartphone, and basically getting information from all of the social media and YouTube and other video platforms and podcasts, and it's also something which we can get hooked in, and literally it pulls us into certain direction where the certain information, you go to one video, it feeds you to the other video, and it feeds you to the other video. They
Mm.
made an algorithm on YouTube, and Google made algorithm, Facebook made algorithm to literally hook you on a stuff that makes you click again and more and hook you on watching. But they
Yeah.
find out it's more like about conspiracies, and it's actually intentionally designed. Well, not intentionally, but they say the AI doesn't recognize if that's actually a valid information, if it's dangerous, but it feeds you more of the stuff that you're gonna likely click on and keep watching more.
Mm.
And that's why once, let's say, somebody is watching, let's say, something about conspiracy A, it's gonna offer you conspiracy B just because it knows you're interested in that topic. And that's
Mm.
somebody who used to work in these big social media, actually revealing that how it works. That's why your YouTube feed always shows you the stuff that you're sort of like similar into, and that could be quite dangerous. And that's something I want to
Yeah.
talk about, especially now with vaccines. You were the one who actually, with plus two other clients of mine that are actually, one in specifically, Nicole, she's working in virology, and she uses AI to gather more information from different languages to actually find solutions to health problems and find medicines as well. And so you both told me, look, the risk of getting COVID versus risk of getting complication from the vaccine is like 1 to 1,000. So it's like, so you can tell me about it. Well, how would you
Yeah,
explain to
so
someone
scientists
who
tend
is
to.
now, how somebody is actually now like, I don't really want vaccine because they read too much about it?
I think scientists, spend a lot of time thinking about relative risk, like route A versus route B. So we understand context quite well. And I think where people go astray on the YouTube videos is they're told something is toxic. But, if you look at the toxicity profiles of anything, including something like water, water is toxic in high enough amounts. So you can drown, for example. But, in the right dose, it'll keep you hydrated and your body will function optimally. So I see a lot of YouTube videos that say X is toxic and you can't have anything to do with it because X is in some of the therapeutics that are on the market. But actually, regulators, really understand the context of this and only give a seal of approval when something is genuinely safe. That's their 100% full-time focus, regulators. So even if new therapy developers want to get something to market, the regulators will always be pushing back to make sure that any new treatment has proven safety before it's let out into the public domain. And in the case of the COVID vaccine, all the usual tests were applied in the same way as they would be normally do to any vaccine or new therapeutic coming onto market. The key thing is it happened quickly this time around because what would normally happen is, one runner would run around the track and then hand off the baton to the next person on the process. Whereas this time round, all the runners were running around at the same time. So it just meant that the overall race was far shorter than regularly we would see. But all the usual tests were still carried out. And there's the I suppose the key thing is that when you have a health emergency like that, like I mean, apart from the disaster itself of people dying with COVID, I found it quite reassuring the way humanity kind of started sharing information, and we developed a lot of new therapeutics that will stop people from catching COVID, and if they do catch it, then they'll be able to be treated so that they won't have permanent health issues going forward. And I think the key thing is we live in an information age, but the consequence of living in an information age is we need to teach people how to critically think, and that comes back to context. So if you're watching a YouTube video, I would ask, well, what expertise does the person have in the area that they're discussing? And B, what do they stand to personally gain from it? So, like, particularly if you're watching news that you haven't paid for, how neutral will that news be? And sometimes people are just nuts on YouTube. They've lost a few marbles and they're psychotic, and they can sound perfectly rational, but the you don't have the capacity to question those people. They're presenting a narrative to you, but you can't interrupt them and say, well, what do you think about this aspect? And I think that in some ways it's kind of sad that people are vaccine hesitant because they've kind of slipped into these conspiracy videos on YouTube. But I think that denial is one of the ways that people deal with a very severe situation such as COVID. Like you'll meet some people and they just, there's no such thing as COVID, and
They
that's
disregard it.
psychologically. I look at that as just a defense mechanism. So they're just denying the problem exists at all. And then you have other people who will, be, reticent to accepting the fact that something can naturally arise that has so much power over us. Because it can be disconcerting to know that life is, some aspects of life is random.
It
Some
can be
aspects of
fragile
life
as
are,
well.
yeah, and that we are fragile. And, but I think at the same time, then, if you're trying to persuade a person who's vaccine resistant or, reticent, I should say, you have to kind of get a feel for where they are at psychologically and why are they resisting the vaccine.
It could be the
And
fear.
if, yeah, it can be fear, or it can be a feeling that, you
Complying with the
can't trust.
government.
But
They don't
like I
want to.
said, if
Yeah.
you don't trust one government, you look around at what's happening globally, and all governments are trying to develop new treatments and vaccines, and they understand. If they don't understand the social importance, they certainly understand the economic importance of making vaccines for this virus.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, the other client that I train, Nicole, she is virologist. She said that it has to be the global effort, because
yeah,
if you have one pocket, let's say a Europe, fully vaccinated, fully protected, and you have rest of the world sharing the virus and allowing the mutations, some of these mutations come back to you and you won't be prepared for that. So
yeah,
that again shows that global effort, the partnership between scientists, researchers, doctors, and people to basically work on this problem together. So,
yeah,
and as we spoke about all the sort of like manipulation from internet, maybe 15, 16 years ago, I really got into all sorts of conspiracies, and you start believing it. So then now I'm more skeptical about things because I learned how easy I was manipulated. I had friends as well, like reminding me, someone who is knowledgeable, is like, look, don't just quote something that was on Facebook, don't just show something like those memes when you have a picture with a little bit of text. So like, somebody did that, what's their thing behind it? Just doesn't mean it doesn't just because people share that because it's like, oh, look at that, it doesn't mean there's nothing to do with truth whatsoever.
Well, I mean, if you're trying to persuade somebody who's vaccine resistant, the first thing you got to do is listen to them and find out, where their headspace is at. And 9 times out of 10, it'll be fear or mistrust. And that, I mean, instead of telling people what they should think, it's much better to listen to them and then lead them with some questions towards an alternative viewpoint. If they're, like, I mean, if there is no vaccine, why are so many different people around the world going, and why are rates falling off because they're getting vaccinated? And then if the vaccine was very toxic, why, I mean, conspiracy theories, I suppose, can feed themselves, because you can always say, oh, this is being covered up, or that's always false. But I think any rational person would be able to see that over time, the vaccination program is the only way out of the the COVID scenario that doesn't result in huge numbers of deaths. Um, you know, so I think as well, I think if people understood what's going on in the hospitals more, I think that would also help people realize what's really going on. Like, I think the big thing now is that younger people, in particular, like in their 20s and 30s, are getting infected with the COVID, and they're displaying what's called long term
So what
COVID.
is it, a long COVID, like they cannot shake it
Yeah.
off?
Well, yeah, and you can get kind of what lung scarring, so you can get damage of lung tissue. which can, affect your, your breathing,
For lifetime,
obviously.
maybe even, no? Like it
Yeah. And
damages
you
the
can also
lungs.
get, yes. And that's one of the key things that, the long COVID can cause deterioration in quality of life for the rest of your life, not just while you have, the initial infection with the virus. So it is really important that everybody get vaccinated, um, just to help each other out as well, because basically everybody who's not vaccinated remains a petri dish for the further mutation of the virus. And if everybody got vaccinated, it would be much harder for the virus to find a foothold to further mutate into more virulent strains. So the longer people are resistant to vaccination, the greater the chance that new, more deadly versions of the virus will come about. So look at what the scientists are doing and the doctors are doing. They're all getting the jab. I mean,
And
the
they are
minute
smart
they
people.
offered
They
me
know what they're doing.
vaccination, I was out the door because I understood like how much how, how much what a benefit the vaccination would be to me personally. I was an asthmatic when I was a teenager and a young child. And it's horrible when you have low lung capacity and incapacity to breathe properly. And my heart really goes out to people who now get the lung scarring in particular and then have problems breathing for the rest of their life. You know, um, I think, you know, it's actually really sad when you see people resisting vaccination. Um, and it's something that we need to listen to people and lead them with with questions, to reevaluating their position. But we live in a democracy, and you can't just arbitrarily tell people what to do. You have to persuade them. You know.
True. Yeah. There's something that also I heard of, like getting the COVID again, getting it second time. And there's also something that you have mentioned in one of our conversations. We were actually discussing something like the effectiveness of the vaccine, and we were actually, you told me that it is your immune system. So even if you are vaccinated, you might have such a bad immune system that it actually still, even with vaccine, you're still not protected because you're just having holes in your system. You're
Well,
vulnerable.
like it's same with flu. When you get your flu jab, if you're particularly kind of under the weather, generally, like say if you've got a poor immune system because you're generally, you're more likely to catch the flu. And it's important to look after your body's capacity to regenerate and heal itself through good nutrition, good exercise, keeping your stress down by engaging with people. I think one of the things that can be very tough on people is if they're completely in isolation, because people, we're social animals, and it's important for us to have social interactions with other people. And my heart really goes out to the people who have to cocoon away from other people, because that's tough.
Can be lonely, not seeing their grandkids and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Like, I mean, to be honest with you, like, I was thinking there, you know, uh, when I went back and met my family and friends on holiday last week, it actually was really emotional. And just to get back to Ireland and see family and friends, just to see things were still the same. And spent the vast majority of the holidays kind of like outside the cities in the countryside. And life was far more normalized, in the I think out in the villages and towns rather than in the cities per se. I think the cities are still quite strange. There's a lot of businesses still boarded up. And I think it'll take a little bit longer for life to normalize fully in the cities.
well, there are still lockdowns going on. So yeah, the cities are still sort of in the some cities are still in the lockdown, so we are not still over yet. So they're talking about now a lot of young people are getting now COVID, and it's the Delta variant, and the hospitalizations are not increasing as much. So what's happening that the virus is coming, it's more infectious, but people are more prepared to deal with it. But they will still take a, they might still take, these young people might still take damage from it. And another question is, how come the young kids don't really get it and have no issues whatsoever? It's mystery for me.
Well, I suppose, like when you're very young, you might be getting antibodies from your mother through breast milk, or and the thing is, like, adolescents are growing a lot, which is quite stressful on the body, so they might have diminished capacity to react to the virus, because they're just growing so much. There's a lot of change going on within the body. And sometimes it can be like, early 20 somethings, they might be just, you know, more social, or they might be engaged in more risky behavior as they, like we all make when we're
Partying and
young.
all that stuff, drugs,
Yeah,
alcohol.
yeah. And also, I think when you're young at that age, you don't want to be controlled, even if it
True,
is for your own good.
true, true.
And I think, you can imagine it's quite difficult to persuade a large group of people to a common good, given that each person has a different perspective, or they might have different fears, or different lifestyles, or different backgrounds, or different capacities to change. And I think, what we can do is just listen to the people who are vaccine resistant and gently encourage them with independently verifiable facts, and explaining the consequences of them not taking the vaccine. They're basically making it more likely that it's going to be a problem in the community at large. And, then giving context to how the vaccine is developed, and, the, that some of these messages online, they don't take into account the context. So they say X, Y, and Z is toxic, but practically everything can be toxic in high amounts, and it's all about the amount present in the vaccine. So, and like before the vaccine was ever released to the public, it had been tested on tens of thousands of patients, giving large amounts of data showing that the vaccines are safe, you know. So, I mean, to be honest with you, I think one of the, and I'm sure your other client who is trained in science, like we ran out the door the minute the letter came in that we could go and get vaccinated, because we understood
You
the relative
understood,
risk.
yeah.
And then what's kind of sad now is when you see people, oh, you got to go for this vaccine versus another vaccine because so and so said this
It's
and
still
so and so.
producing, it's still producing fear, doesn't it? It's like,
Well, the key thing is that the vaccine is a variable, but actually your own lifestyle is, if not as great, a bigger variable in the outcome. So if you're run down and you go for a vaccination, you might feel quite run down for a few days afterwards. Or if you're overly worrying about stuff, you might be stressing yourself out to the capacity that your immune response is diminished. So we can worry ourselves into sickness, which I think a lot of people don't, fully acknowledge. Obviously, not worrying about your health is also a bad thing, but there's a balance between worrying enough and just controlling what you can control, which is the pragmatic way, as opposed to worrying about things that you can't control and then not focusing terribly much on what you need to do in the here and now to protect yourself.
yeah.
You know,
It's interesting actually how we went from, um, excuse me, how we went through the topics of longevity and fertility and so on, how we actually jumped to the COVID. Actually, there were so many questions I had. We could actually have mentioned that already, that we will
Mm.
jump into this topic quite deep. And, is there anything you would want to mention on the topic that we didn't say in this regard?
Well, I think the key thing is if you know somebody who's resistant to getting the
I know a
vaccine,
bunch of
to,
people.
to listen to them, to listen to them at the beginning, and then once you fully understand what their mental process is, why they're resisting this, um, maybe they had a particularly bad time in lockdown. Maybe they just need to be listened to. Maybe they've become distrustful because of the alien nature of social isolation. And maybe they just need a friend to listen to them a bit. Like one of the key things that can happen in lockdown is that, you know, people lose some of the relationships that naturally orientate them, you know? So, if you're living in isolation or near isolation, or just focusing on YouTube videos that are given to you, you can lose a sense of orientation. You lose your sense of normality almost. And I think the more we see that the normality is people are going in getting COVID shots, and it's not such a big deal. You might be tired for a day or two, but the vast majority of people get over it, with
Easily.
ease.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to get that out there. But I think if people are resistant, it's important to figure out why they're resistant prior to ramming information down their throats.
Yeah.
It might be that they just need they must need some assurance and just basic human interaction.
Do you
You know,
remember when they were saying like 5G caused the mutation? It's just like there was like such a mix of weird stuff that people were talking about, and I'm like,
I think if people aren't very well educated about these things, how are they to discriminate between completely bogus claims and real claims? And I think, like for example, if you know the basic science around, mobile phone masts, for example, you know that, physically they can't alter what, the DNA or anything like that. That's just, it's just not true. But, I suppose not taking the privilege of education for granted. I mean, people who aren't educated, um, the world might be not as black and white for them, and this is why education is to be valued, because you develop a better, more deep, realistic understanding of the world around us. That makes us less easy to misinform.
yeah.
You know.
In fairness, this is actually interesting topic. How where I was growing up in sort of Soviet Union occupied Czechoslovakia until I was
Mm.
7, so 82 to 89. How when I was talking to my parents and grandparents, how they were saying how certain books were blocked, certain freedom of speech was blocked. So you didn't get as much misinformation, but you had no freedoms. And then when we came up with all available books, you have suddenly the whole background of like a whole like a environment of conspiracies and bad information too. And then when it came up with the internet, you have a whole culture of like everybody's like into that. And I was kind of shifting from one to the other and just kind of finding myself. And what I learned is actually to be more skeptical. Don't trust anyone and everyone suddenly. Just make your own opinions. And sometimes just because this guy explained it so well doesn't mean it's 100% true. And I think that comes also with nutrition, that there's so many diets and so many theories. Should we eat meat? Should we eat dairy? Should we eat gluten? What's the best diet? And they were saying like we were adapting as well from different diets, and there were civilizations that used all sorts of different variations of it. And then realize mostly they were doing okay and adapting okay. So it doesn't mean that we're all gonna be like that, and everybody is individual. So that's also what I want to talk to people about, is how the nutrition, everybody has to find their own sort of like a way and see what feels good to them. And I mean, like, one of the major thing is, like, if you eat something and you are bloated and you are feeling like to go to the toilet, or just like feeling very unsettled or sleepy, maybe your body's telling you this is not the right food in it. Stephen, thank you so much for sharing all the information, and a really interesting talk. Always pleasure to talk, and also training with you. Thank you again for
Yep.
coming on the podcast.
No, it's very interesting. Like, all these things are connected, and we all just have to try and keep each other informed and keep each other on the right track. So thank you, Oto.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.